The calendar has flipped to June, and you know what that means. It's time to start previewing the 2022-23 UNC basketball roster. And so that's what Coach Pat Kilby and I are going to do every Wednesday until we get all the way through the roster. And so we're going to start right from the fresh fish, the freshman. Coach Pat Kilby, who are we starting with?
The big man from Gary, Indiana, Jalen Washington.
Let's do it.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. Welcome in to the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. As always, I'm your host, Isaac Shade, beat writer for Sports Illustrated's All Tar Heels website. And as he does every Wednesday, Coach Pat Kilby is here joining me, and we want to thank you for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or your first watch every single day. Please remember that we are free and available anywhere you get podcasts, so stop right now while you're listening. You don't even have to stop. Keep listening and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, smash the like button so we know that you're here. Leave us a comment of that great content. Get right into it. A couple things out of the gate. Pack. Today is Wednesday, and it's a weird day for me because I'm getting old. I mean, we're all getting older every single day. But my son, Paxton, same name as you we've never said this on the show. Pack is short for Paxton. And so today is my little man's last day of kindergarten. I can't believe that. But here we are, man. Like, what? It's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome, though. You know, like you said, so my son, Jameson, he's getting ready to start pre-K in August. And so I feel that. Like, we're all getting older every day, but some stuff just hits a little bit differently.
Dude, it really does, man. Being a dad has made me more emotional than I ever realized I ever was. And I cry at the drop, like I'm watching a Disney movie or something. It's like, oh my word, it's so sad. Also, on Wednesday today, June 1st, today is the deadline for people who have declared, underclassmen anyway, who have declared for the NBA draft to pull out and retain their collegiate eligibility. There is an NBA deadline that's later, but don't worry about that. That's for international players. Today is the deadline if you want to come back and maintain your collegiate eligibility. As of when we're recording this, which is about 10 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday night, we're still waiting on some big names. Trevor Keels from Duke is still out there, Drew Timme from Gonzaga, and a few others. And so, Pack, anybody you're watching with special interest to see what they decide to do, or maybe somebody that already made a decision today?
Yeah, well, Keels can stay in the draft. We don't want him coming back. But no, I think you mentioned the big name, Drew Timme. I think everybody's kind of got their eyes on him because obviously he's a very talented player. He's very skilled, makes a huge difference for Gonzaga. And, as a Carolina fan, with him potentially back in the picture at Gonzaga, that's just another team that's a threat and potentially stands in the way of a national championship. So. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, he can stay in the NBA draft too.
Yeah, there's that from the we want to beat you side, but from a college basketball side, man, we talked about it early on in this offseason, but NIL really, really is bringing a lot of the earlier on Tuesday, another guard from another Carolina rival, Terquavion Smith from NC State, said he was coming back. You got to think the Wolfpack dropped the bag on that one to get that dude back to school. He's a first-round pick, no-brainer, and so that's super interesting.
I think they probably had to drop the bag. Keats is – I don't think it's any secret he's on the hot seat, so You better get some dudes in there that can play some ball. And then, well, they've had some guys. They've just got to start winning. But
yeah. Isn't Keats on the hot seat every year, it seems like?
It seems like. And not just him. It's every NC State coach. It's Gottfried. It's Keats. It's who was the
Sidney Lowe?
Sidney Lowe, yes.
With his red coat?
Yes.
Hey, it worked that one ACC tournament, but then I think he used up all the magic in that one weekend. So.
Yeah.
But we are here specifically today to start rolling through the roster. We're going to do that every Wednesday. We're going to roll through the freshmen, the first 4 Wednesdays of this. And so today, as Pac said, we are starting with Jalen Washington, as he already said, from Gary, Indiana. Pac, why don't you just give us a little more biographical info on our man Jalen?
Yeah, so like we said, he's from Gary, Indiana, which is promising. Carolina's had some solid big man from the state of Indiana before.
Yes, sir.
6'10", 210 pounds, so he's got a good build. The wingspan on Jalen is off the charts. So he's 6'10", but he's got the 7'4" wingspan, which is awesome.
Ridiculous.
Yes. Jalen plays for the West Side High School there in Gary, Indiana. His AAU team, I love this name, Mean Streets.
Yes.
That's a pretty cool name. You see
rad.
a lot of like basic names, but I think that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, especially in this day and age where we see all like Team CP3 or Team Bradley Beal, all that stuff. It's like, dude, I love just a awesome name.
It's original. It's cool.
It's great.
So and so Jalen, his rankings, I'll just break those down for you real quick. With ESPN, he's ranked 37th. With Rivals, 49th. The 247, he's 60th, but the 247 composite, he's 43rd. So we're kind of across the board there, like anywhere between 37 and 60.
Yeah. Which, man, that's always a good – those are those guys you look at and think, hey, this guy might be around for a couple of years. And that gets me excited in this day and age of people leaving all the time.
Absolutely. And the rankings, to me, are probably a little bit skewed. He's obviously battled some injuries. And I think if we were talking about a fully healthy Jalen Washington, we would be talking about the rankings being a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
And that's just my personal opinion. But I do think that his injuries probably hindered him a little bit. But still, to go through 2 ACL tears and be right here, that's pretty promising. And we know the type of young man that he is. He's going to bounce back nicely.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm with you of that same opinion. Like, if he is healthy all through high school, but obviously that has to be part of the equation, right? Because it is part of the equation. It's real life. But if those ACLs aren't part of the equation, I think this dude is top 20 probably, like from a skill and basketball IQ standpoint. Yeah, you're right on about that. What about his commitment and other schools that were courting him?
Yeah, so he committed July 9th of 2021. And
so just about a year, 11 months ago.
Yeah. And so Carolina, I think he stated before, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Carolina's a dream school for him. The other schools involved with his commitment, like the main schools, were Stanford and Purdue, which Purdue's your in-state program. And I'm really surprised that like Notre Dame or the Hoosiers weren't kind of on top of him. But
I found some stuff about like early on. I think I can't even remember what year this was. I found a Notre Dame message board as I was doing some of our research for today. And they were talking about him early, like since he was just right down the road. Clearly from this other list of schools, he was strongly considering Purdue. Strong programs there. Obviously Stanford got to be pretty smart to go there. As we know, Jalen is his class salutatorian. And goodness gracious, lots of interesting stuff there. So
absolutely. And we know that he's going to be a good big man because it seems like Carolina and Purdue are always the 2 schools all over all the good big men in the country. And so if those 2 schools are pursuing him, he's going to be good.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, what you were remembering about Carolina being his dream school, that's when he and I chatted, oh gosh, what is that, a week or 2 ago now, he said, yeah, it was essentially a no-brainer for me that this is the school I've always loved. And and even though, as Pac said, everyone listening, that it was down to Purdue and Carolina and Stanford, this dude has a whole host of people offering him. We don't want you to hear us saying it's just those three, but that's who he had narrowed it down to. And so, yeah, love that. It's awesome that he wants, as Coach Davis has said, I want guys that want to be here. And very clearly he has bought into that vision.
Yes, absolutely.
So for those wanting to go find Jalen out in social media world, he is on Twitter and Instagram. By his own admission, he's much more active on Instagram than on Twitter. But on Twitter, he is at Jalen_W13. And then on Instagram, it's W period, like not spelled out period, like period, _Jalen, Jalen. So make sure you go and give our man a follow on all the social medias. Well, we're going to start diving into talking more about Jalen's game, what he brings to the table, who he is as a person, all of that kind of good stuff in just a moment. But first, let me tell you all about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models of cars, it's almost impossible for local auto parts stores to carry everything that you need at a moment's notice. And so why not just use rockauto.com from your own computer, wherever you're listening or watching this podcast today, and you can just get onto rockauto.com and find what you're looking for there, because their inventory is stacked. They got it all. Plus, when you go into the store, you got to figure out all the make and model and trim, and then tell the customer service person, and then they got to go look it up and see if it's ridiculous. Don't go through all that. Plus, Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. That level of consistency is something you can believe in. Rock Auto prices are reliably low all the time for every customer, and their inventory, again, has everything that you need. So go to rockauto.com right now to see all the parts available for your car or truck. While you're there, write Locked On in their "How did you hear about us" box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your vehicle will ever need. That's rockauto.com. We've also got an important favor to ask of you as we get into the summer, and by we I mean Locked On. Locked On has put together a survey to help us learn more about listeners like you, viewers like you, and to help make your favorite Locked On show, like Locked On Tar Heels, even better than they already are. So this is an opportunity to tell us what you like and what you hate about Locked On podcast. Like, for example, Pack and I were talking about just before we got on, there was a guy that left a comment that was like, "Terrible podcast," with like 80 million exclamation points at the end. That's awesome. I love it. You can say that, but then tell us why. We need to know why so that we can make it not a terrible podcast. And so go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey is going to qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards that you could use on a Carolina sporting event or whatever you want to do. So take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks so much for your help, and would love to see some listeners and viewers of Locked On Tar Heels win some of those gift cards. So, Pack, let's get right back into talking about Jalen here, and let's start with his strengths. Obviously, he's going to have a bunch of them because he is essentially top 50 recruit in his class, and so he's going to have a bunch of strengths, but obviously we'll also have some things to work on. But let's start with the positive. We like to always frame it in this way. Jalen Washington could play in college already right now today because of this skill.
Well, I think he's a great face-up player. He's great with the ball in his hands, facing the basket. He's tough to guard. He's got a basically he sets everything up with a jab step, and how you react is basically determines what he does.
Interesting.
If you respect the step, then he's going to pull up, and if you don't respect the step, then he's going to blow by you. And so he does a really good job with that out of his face-up game. And then I see him fulfilling almost a Brady Manek-esque role in the fact that he can really shoot the ball. He's got a quick release. He's got a high release. He can do some pick and pop. He would be great as a trail four. So he's got just so many things to like about his game. And on top of that, he's got a high IQ. Jalen, and we'll talk about this more in a little bit, he's not going to blow you away or kill you with his athleticism. He's just not. But where he's really strong is he's a smarter basketball player than you. And he sets himself up for success that way.
Yeah. Man. So I'm so many great things you said there. I've been tracking with that too. I feel like I saw so many highlights of him as that trail four, like would either get the rebounds, get an outlet to start the break, or would like be the would throw the ball, get the ball inbounds, the inbounds guy. I couldn't think of the phrase. Would inbounds the ball and be the trail four and just pull up and drain a three. And as you've said, like, well, you haven't said this yet. We're going to get to it in just a second, so I'll save that. But man, you get Bacot down the floor establishing himself in the paint in transition, and then here comes Washington and just like, oh crud, here we go, and he's going to pop it on you. Like, brilliant. I love to see that. And so we love to see these new big guys shy about Jalen Washington.
Well, he's got a very high release point, which it's not just what I like. That's what the NBA likes. It's a high release, and
Bingo.
yeah, exactly. Which that means a lot more than what I like. But he also does a great job. He's got a quick release, and man, his jumper is just smooth. And what's cool about him is pretty rare to see someone with his length to have that smooth of a jump shot. You don't see that very frequently. And so that's really, really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Like as I watch, so many big guys, it's clear. It's like, yes, this is a big guy that's worked on his shot, but it's so awkward. Like a deer that just came out of its mother, like not figuring out how to use its limbs, but, they just stop and shove it at the goal or shove. But with Washington, man, it is nice. It looks natural. It looks like an actual basketball shot. He gets good height on his jump. It looks repeatable to me. And that, goodness, that's something, so important is, can you repeat this motion and this form and all the fundamentals of it over and over and over again? And to me, his shot is that. When I look at it, and that makes me really excited about it. You talked about his pick and roll game, his ability to pick and pop, or do other things. How do you think that could be beneficial for the Tar Heels?
Well, if the mold continues that Hubert used, he, first of all, you kind of mentioned it in the trail four spot. He'll be the inbounder. He's going to be basically coming down the floor. Well, that's an option. Just hit him and let's go. But in the actual half-court setting, Coach Davis has ran a lot of horn sets, which is bringing, Bacot and Jalen up, and it's using them in a ball screen scenario where the guard can use either way. And then off of that, you see him popping a lot. And so, which goes back to that Brady Manek-esque type role. Yep. I see him thriving in that. I see that being the biggest, a huge success point for him and setting him up for success on the court, because that's what he offers. He spaces the floor. And I was just going to say that just sets up so well for Carolina, because especially with Bacot, or even not just him specifically, but a presence like him that commands his presence in the post, which is going to open things up for Jalen or anyone else that can stretch the floor in that position. But if you respect that, then to the flip, it opens up Bacot. So it just works out well for Carolina.
Boy, yeah, that give and take. Again, I know I've said his name before. I think I said it when we talked about G.G. Jackson, but Jabari Smith from Auburn this year, who's in the conversation for number one pick in the draft this year, has so much of that similar ability. I love it. And, you talked about both his Jalen's face-up game and his kind of those horn sets. And I feel like with so many big guys, we talk about their face-up game, but it's within 5 feet of the basket. They turn and face and can make a move from there. With Jalen, if you haven't watched his highlights, folks, go watch it. You'll see over and over again. He comes up from the post, just gets a normal pass, not even in pick and roll action, gets that pass just north of the free throw line, turns and faces, and gets that jab step that Pac you talked about. And a lot of times he just drains that, 17-footer or whatever he wants to hit. Mm-hmm. It looks nice. It's so smooth. So okay, now we're gushing over our man Jalen right now. Let's bring him back down to earth a little bit. What are some of the potential weaknesses or holes in his game at this point?
Well, I think it goes without saying the injuries that he's been battling it's not a weakness per se. It's just unfortunate, but because of them, I think we're talking about lateral quickness and ability to move laterally, especially in today's game. I can tell you for sure that if I was coaching against him, I'm going to put him in the pick and roll, and let's see if we can exploit that. And maybe we can't, and maybe Jalen steps on the floor in college and he does a great job. But right now, the question mark is, where is his lateral quickness at and his ability to do that? And I think that's something, I do want to touch on this. It's something that will be there over time. I have no doubt about that, because the type of kid that he is and his work ethic, he's going to get there. But immediately, I would be testing it if I was coaching against him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's little league or rec basketball or whatever, you're not going to pick on the kid, but this is D1 college basketball. Of course we're going to exploit a weakness, even if it's an injury. And so Jalen, if he's going to stay on the court, is going to have to prove that he's healthy and able to defend in ball screen action. He's going to have to be able to switch and do all the things that the modern day big man can do. And we've seen a bad example of this recently with Sterling Manley, who was just never really able to overcome his injuries. Two ACLs, that's not easy. It's certainly overcomable. Do you see him doing that? Do you think he'll be able to be healthy enough to be a contributor, or is it going to take 2 or 3 years to get there?
No, I absolutely see him being able to be a contributor right away, actually. I think he's kind of my dark horse. I think he's going to really surprise some people this year, and he's going to play a significant role on Carolina's basketball team. Yeah, I think maybe more so than any other freshman. I would be willing to say that at this point.
And why do you think that is, Pac?
Well, for one, we're pretty much set in our guard play to an extent. I think, don't get me wrong, I think Trimble's going to play a role, especially with Spelling, Caleb Love, and RJ here and there. Yep. But where we've got to grow as a team is we've got to be able to rest Bacot, and we've got to be able to rest, whoever's coming in and fulfilling that 4 spot, whether that's Puff or whether that's somebody from the portal. We don't know yet, but I think Jalen's going to fill that role, and I don't think he's going to just be a stretch 4 like we're talking about. I think he's going to play with his back to the basket some and do some of that. But I think he offers that for Carolina right off the bat. I really do. I have that much faith and confidence in him.
Man, that's great. Yeah, and he's going to have to add some bulk to that frame if he wants to be that 5, or whether it's traditional 5 or small ball 5. As I look at his frame, he looks like somebody that can support that more muscle, more mass, more weight, whatever it may be. And so, this question that Pac brings up is basically Jalen's going to it's funny because on offense, he's going to thrive in the pick and roll game. And on defense, that's where he's a potential liability and is going to have to prove himself there so that he doesn't get relegated to the bench. And in the way the game is today, that's just true. We see centers get pick and rolled out of NBA games all the time and become liabilities. So we're going to see it. But as Pac said, he and I both believe that Jalen's going to be able to do that. He's a hard worker. He gets after it. He wants it. and that's something we expect to see. Well, we do want to talk more about Jalen the person. Just some neat things we see there, some comparisons we see to maybe some former Tar Heel players, some NBA players, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. So you can find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including the NBA Finals starting tomorrow, Thursday. Who you got, Pack? Who's winning?
I think the Warriors in 6.
Yeah, man, I'm with that. But just to be different, I'll say Warriors in 5, which is not all that different. But man, yeah, I think we talked about it last week too, but I just don't see any this. Celtics are playing well, but Warriors are on fire. All right, so we got the NBA Finals plus Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even futures for next year's NFL season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering info, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Well, so this is something Pack and I have done every time we've discussed a player, broken down a player, previewed a player, whatever it is. And I know this is a complete inexact science, but we're going to do our best. And I'll just go ahead and pull back the curtain a little bit. We had trouble deciding on a Carolina comparison for Jalen. And so it's kind of a Frankenstein player I feel like we've put together here a little bit, Pack, right? What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I really like, and you know this because we had these conversations, but I struggled with who to go with, for as far as a UNC comparison. And what I ended up deciding and was actually recommended by you, and it was kudos to you for figuring this out, but Luke May. And I think that he's a good comparison just based on skill set, because Luke May could stretch the floor. He could shoot the basketball. He was good in the face-up. Now, what Luke doesn't have is Jalen's height. He doesn't have Jalen's length. He doesn't have Jalen's rebounding ability. But it's the closest comparison. It's the closest Tar Heel comparison we can find as far as style of play goes. Yes, yeah, and I think that's more where this comparison lies is style of play, right? Luke is not the overwhelming athlete that's gonna out athlete you. But Pac, who are some of the other people we mentioned that just have little bits of pieces of their game or maybe their body type that we thought Jalen reminded us of? Sure, yeah. I thought one of the guys that stood out to me was Jawad Williams. And I think that had Jawad played in a more modern era of basketball, he might actually be the perfect comparison, but we really don't know because – as we know, when Roy Williams came in, it was 3 out, 2 in, back to the basket type stuff. And so we really don't know what that would have looked like. But I also thought Deion Thompson too. Yeah. And I think Deion is comparable in the sense that he came in that somewhere in that 40 to 60 recruit range and just turned into just a 4-year Carolina guy. And I believe until Leaky passes it up this year, he's played in more Carolina games than anyone else. And I don't want to say I don't think Jalen will, go to the NBA draft, but I foresee that for Jalen. I think he's going to be a 4-year Carolina guy and be a 4-year contributor, not a guy that contributes his last 2 years, but 4 years. And so I see little bits and pieces all over the Carolina past that remind me of Jalen. Yeah, man, that's great. What about at the NBA level? Who would you see Jalen Washington's game in? Yeah, so I went with Kevin Love here, and I think you nailed it on the head earlier. He's not going to beat you with athleticism, and that's Kevin Love to me. Where Kevin Love is going to beat you is with his IQ, and that's the same way that Jalen is. Jalen, the more I watch Jalen, the more I think that he has an extremely high IQ for the game. He's smart. He never forces the issue. He always makes the right play, and so a lot of that stuff reminds me of Kevin Love because that's how he tailored his game. and he obviously turned out to be pretty successful with it.
Yeah, I'd say so. And also, folks, do not be mistaken and hear us saying that Jalen Washington is not athletic. This dude is athletic. Go watch him dunk the basketball a couple times. It's just when you compare him to some of the top end elite athletes, he's just not in that tier. So when we say that, just that is the frame in which we're talking about it. So
that's a great point.
Yeah. And so I just want to make sure everybody's always hearing the context in which we say these things. Jalen's going to run circles around me as an athlete. Hear that? So, Pat, why are you excited for Jalen Washington to be part of this team?
Man, I'm excited for Jalen because, as I mentioned earlier, I think he's going to be a contributor right off the bat. I really do. And, Hubert Davis has came out and said before, you're going to get a chance. Everyone on his roster is going to get a chance. And I truly believe Jalen's going to get a chance, and I believe he's going to prove he's going to earn his minutes and prove himself to Coach Davis and to his team. And so I think he's going to contribute right away. I think he's going to be a great fit for the team. And maybe the most exciting thing about him, the dude is a true Tar Heel. Like, if you look at him as a person and who he is and what he represents, that's North Carolina. He's a great teammate. He's a fantastic young man. If anyone on here has listened to his interview with you, I believe it was last week, you can tell right off the bat the dude is just a fantastic kid. And so anytime we get high-quality players and high-quality people in the program, then as a Carolina fan, it's got to make you proud, and having him definitely makes me proud.
Yeah, like I'm with you. He's just somebody you just want to root for. Like, even if he wasn't a Tar Heel, I feel like he's the type of guy that I'm like, man, I just want to see you succeed. I want to see you overcome these injuries. And speaking of which, I feel like if he does, he could be one of the steals of this recruiting class. Like, and I don't just mean for Carolina, I mean nationally. Like, if he is able to get through these ACLs, my goodness, the skill set that's already there, the high IQ that you've talked about, if he can combine healthy body with all those things, yeah. So Pat, here's my question for you. You talked about this earlier, and I wanted to ask you this before we get out of here today. You talked about these big guys that have come from Indiana. So we got Eric Montross, I'm going to give you Sean May, and I'm going to give you Tyler Zeller. All three of them, big guys that came from Indiana that won a national championship at Carolina. Eric Montross in 93, Sean May in 05, and then Tyler Zeller in 09. If you're starting a basketball team around one of these three guys, who are you taking?
Sean May.
Sean May. I love it. Why so?
So, first of all, there's a little bit of bias in this because I'm going to give away my age here. I was born in 93. Well, 05, I was 12 years old for that national championship. So that's like right when I loved Carolina basketball, but that's when it just like over the moon in love with Carolina basketball. And that was Sean May, and that was Raymond Felton and Jackie Manuel and those guys. And so I know this is going to sound crazy, but Sean May is my favorite big man of all time, even over Tyler Hansbrough and Kennedy Meeks and even Bacot. I just love Sean May. And so that to me is a no-brainer. Yeah,
I love that. Well, you stole my answer, and this time I'm not going to be contrarian. I'm just going to roll with it. I was going to say Sean May as well. The way he started dominating games down the stretch of his junior year was just like, my word, what it reminds again so similar to what Bacot was doing down the stretch this past season. Love that. So then the question becomes, Mr. Pat Kilby, is Jalen Washington going to be the next big guy from Indiana to bring home a natty?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's do it.
The cool thing is there's a chance for multiple natties. I believe the future is that bright.
Yeah. Depending on, obviously there's proof that it's possible this upcoming season, depending on how Jalen in particular and others are able to help replace Brady. But man, all the puzzle pieces are there and hopefully can fall into place. And then, as you said, the cupboard is full for the years to come as well.
Absolutely.
Well, Pack, any parting words? I mean, goodness, I don't know that we need to say any more than we're going to win a national championship, but you got anything else?
No, that's it, man.
Man, it's going to be great. Jalen Washington, part of a class of 4 Tar Heels coming in. And next week when Pack and I get together, we're going to talk about another one of them. Pack, why don't you pick who you want to do next?
I want to break down Tyler Nickel.
Let's do it next week. We're going to talk
about him.
Yes. Tyler Nickel, great dude. We just talked with him last Friday on the show. A lot of fun. Great dude to talk to. Yeah, that'll be fun. So next Wednesday, Coach Pat Kilby and I will break down Tyler Nickel's game and prepare you for who he will be and what role he'll play this upcoming season. But as for today's episode of Locked On Tar Heels, that's it. Coming up tomorrow on the show, I'm going to talk with John Garcia Jr. as we do every week about some college football recruiting, several more potential recruits who have been to Chapel Hill from the class of 23. Thanks so much for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or your first watch every single day. Please, if you would, go and subscribe to the show. We're wherever it is, whether you listen or watch. We're just inching up on the YouTube. It's crazy. I have this nuts goal of hitting 5,000 subscribers by the time of the first football game. I don't know if it's going to happen, but why not? Let's throw it out there in the world. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. You can follow Pack on the show at Coach_K23. Make sure to go do that. And you can follow me at Isaac Shade, ISAACSCHADE. Now, let me encourage you to make Locked On NBA Big Boards your second listen of the day. As earlier in the show, Wednesday, June 1st is the day where we're going to know who of the underclassmen is pulling out definitively, and so that's going to give these guys a lot to talk about. But Rafael Barlow and his whole crew give fans an in-depth look into the biggest prospects, latest rankings, draft boards, and of course, all the big boards. Make sure you check it out. Follow Locked On NBA Big Boards every day on the Odyssey app or anywhere else that you listen or watch podcasts. Thanks so much for spending part of your Wednesday talking with me, talking with Coach Pat Kilby about Jalen Washington. It's going to be a fun dude to watch play basketball. You know what? It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. But until tomorrow, peace!